Hello there, welcome to Heart Explained, and today I'm going to say a couple of stories about how unconscious we can be, how ignorant to truth that we can be, and how we can live in a world where we completely tell ourselves a different reality. This is seen by me all the time. I see people living under a false illusion of their life, and it's so important to them personally. It's very difficult as a well-being coach to know whether taking that veil down, the egoic state's veil, and releasing a new one, even though I know there's more chance of improvement, more chance of living, more chance of surviving mental health and physical conditions behind that veil. There's also a risk when you take away something that an ego is clinging onto. It's an uncomfortable sort of feeling and reaction when you break down one of these barriers. And there's a couple of examples recently in therapy that the clients have allowed me to discuss and bring up today, which is very important and highlights this very factor. Recently had a chap who had 3 problems that he wanted to overcome, and they were simple fear-based problems. He feared engagement and getting married to his partner because of family issues and divorce problems when he was growing up, and he had closed himself up from, first of all, relationships, but then he's managed to break down the barrier of a relationship, and he was fearful of losing the partner because she wants marriage and commitment, and not being able to want commitment based on this fear. So you can see how it's a natural interaction from his own life to polarise to think that a committed marriage could end in doom. But also he doesn't want to go back to a place where he was literally never committed to anybody for, I think he said, about 10 years. He could not settle down ever and even get a relationship. It was just literally one night stand after one night stand, and this was just, I mean, at the time it must have been so awful to unconsciously be staying away from your uncomfortable fear that is actually truly something you want to do, and where you find a great piece of happiness. Now, if the third one was he also wanted to go abroad and have a honeymoon abroad, but he was also fearful of a plane. He'd never been on a plane before. And I'm going to show you how all your life really merges into one singular thing. There is, even though you may have different stories, you may have a couple parents that stick together as a child, you will still have had some sort of traumatic event that makes you polarised to the opposite of what you believe to be uncomfortable. And in fact, that polarisation may even make you more uncomfortable because it's based on unknowledgeable fear, lack of understanding of love, your lack of gratitude for what you do have. So to help this chap had a very strong sort of ego defence, which I didn't even know was a strong ego defence until 2 sessions in, when he finally admitted that one of the things that he did, which he didn't even think was bad, was drink a few lagers and beers after work every night, every single day. Couple of beers, sometimes 4, sometimes 6. And he said that he feels great, he's never had any negative effects from alcohol, and this wasn't a problem for him. And I said, just to see if it was, because my mantra is there's a side effect to everything, and alcohol is a depressive alcohol drug, and you having it that much means you're dependent on it, and this might be blocking something naturally that can come out. But I wasn't sure if he could just easily drink in moderation, and it did nothing for him. He could have been fine with this. So I set him a challenge within 14 days to tell me how many days he could go without a drink before he really needed it. And I said, doesn't matter, you don't have to start tonight, but 14 days, at some point you do not drink, and then you tell me how many days you can go without, to see the addictive side of this habit. So he comes back after 14 days and says to me, I have a drink problem. He said there was not one point where I couldn't stop drinking. He said, in fact, I felt that bad about realising this. I've probably drank more this last week. There was one point where I purposely didn't buy any alcohol, and I was going to the shop almost like an alcoholic. And he came to me with the symptoms of, believing he was an alcoholic. Now, this isn't a bad story. He's now consciously become aware that he's doing something because he needs it. And this is a very, this is a good thing to understand. You do things that you need to do to feel comfortable. That's completely natural. But you can also do bad things. And you can actually, your ego can lie to you and pretend that it's okay. And you can have very bad health effects and all sorts. And the first 2 sessions of wellbeing coaching was based on these simple elements and finding out a little bit about past history, and it was quite obvious that it was going to be an easy one to help. But now, thrown in that this person is dependent on alcohol, we have an addictive personality issue that we need to sort out before any growth in the other areas can happen. You cannot be an addictive alcoholic person, and I use the term alcoholic. I don't mean he was drinking first thing in the morning and this is the natural term of alcoholic. For me, somebody who is dependent on something is an addict to that. Somebody who cannot go a day without smoking, drinking, or even other strange things like cream cakes and saying good morning to the postman because it makes them unsettled, or simple OCD things like touching switches and handles. To me, you are addicted to that behaviour because the behaviour can cover something up. It can bring you an illusion that stops you doing something else, which is possibly making you grow. So we had this whole new problem to work with. And addictive therapy is something that you have to tackle hard and quick, in the sense that you have to try something very... I like hypnotherapy when it comes to addictive behaviours, because I find you've got to go deep into the subconscious to retrain that part of the mind. And you could argue this about everything really. We need to train the subconscious. But I think there's certain aspects of hypnotherapy that work really well, and I've helped people quit smoking and quit alcohol or alcoholic behaviour through hypnotherapy. So I was able to do this and focus on this. And now, after going a few days, a week without alcohol, and now he's just a social drinker, he said when this alcohol came out of his system, even though he felt there was nothing wrong, he realised that he was a different person. He was able to actually feel human again. Now this was a very important thing that he said. He said to me that he felt human again after he stopped drinking for a few days. Now, do you know what feeling human is? It's actually almost an uncomfortable feeling, because you are open to love and your heart is expanded and wide open. It's there for the taking, and you 9 times out of 10 you get shit on and people do bad things, and actually it's a lot of suffering. But he said for the first time ever, because he had this open heart and this consciousness where he was very sensitive. He said he just felt super sensitive and very loving at certain points, and loving enough to where he could burst out crying at stupid nature things that he said, like flowers and trees, and he would be driving and he said friends would call him up out the blue asking him for a drink, and he felt like he had more friends than he ever thought he did. It had opened him up, and he said that for the first time he was able to take into his partner's feelings for the very first time ever in the relationship. It was not about him, it was about his partner, and he was able to, not the third one because of the COVID restrictions at the moment, but he was able to get married in a registry office, 10-minute service. He said it was absolutely awful, but also absolutely the best day of his life, but because of this awareness of an unconscious feeling. Now, the reason this has come up today is I've personally emailed him to ask if I can use his story, because there's a couple actually, but this was the best one for me to show how even I didn't realise someone had a problem, because that someone hadn't told me a habit, and they were so unconscious to it, and I honestly thought it was going to be a clean cut sort of, this chap looked like he was working, he'd had a good job, he was in a relationship, and it was just sort of past stuff that was a problem. But when you see that he was taking a drug that caused such a massive side effect, which was suppressing feelings, and then the medicine, if you like, was to feel love again, feel sensitive, put somebody else before himself, he was able to do it. And I'm not sure if the past trauma is ever truly released and gone in any sense of the word. Your story will always be your story, but your story is also created by this day forward. I mean, lots of people don't do stuff because they think they can't do stuff, and you can do anything you want. You can literally, this isn't about positivity 24/7. I think that people are under the illusion that they can go to wellbeing coaches and life coaches and therapists and we're going to sell them 24/7 positivity. You are human. Part of the package with being human is that you have to feel. And if you're suppressing stuff through drugs, and I'm talking about even behaviours, even habits, even you going to the gym 2 hours in the morning is a behaviour that, even though you could say it's healthy for you, it could be polarised behaviour based on not feeling something. So when you can juggle being human with all the good qualities that we know that help anyway, then you've literally mastered the game. And this mastering the game doesn't mean you win the game every day, because the game is so interchangeable. It means you've just got a better chance of enjoying the individual moments all through the 24-hour day. And we wake up and we do it all again. And I hope that shows you how you need to tackle your own unconscious barriers and be aware of what it is that you do and why you do it.